My name is Jean Tiberio, and I'm a nutritionist and a wellness coach. Welcome to Healing Outside the Box. Today is episode 133, and I'm calling it, Does Reiki Work? But before I begin, I want to follow up on episode 131, when I recommended spending a few extra bucks on those organic produce items every week. I listened to a short 5-minute video by Dr. Michael Greger entitled, Are Organic Foods Safer? I'll give you the link in the show notes. If you're still on the fence as to whether or not to buy organic, especially produce, watching that video is definitely worth 5 minutes of your time, especially if you have kids. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I was watching the 6 o'clock news last night, and this was one of the headline stories. They are changing the dummies that they use for the automobile crash testing. The thing that they are changing about the crash test dummies is that they are making the test dummies obese. Yes, indeed. They are stuffing the dummies so full of stuffing as to make their stomachs huge, as our friend Donald J. Trump would say. And then they are putting these huge dummies in a car and crashing the dummies into a wall. Now, can I say something here? First of all, that story pretty much speaks for itself. But secondly, it is my sincere dream that 50 years from now, we will see these obese dummies getting crash tested and say to ourselves, chuckling, can you imagine the day when they thought that fixing our food supply wasn't a possible solution on the table? Who didn't think of the fact that perhaps if we have an obesity epidemic, the food supply might be the problem? And, oh yeah, the food supply might be the answer. I, for one, have not lost hope. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. Maybe with an obese leprechaun right now. But if we see where the problem lies, it is only then that we can fix it. And the problem is that corporations have hijacked our food supply. But we can get it back. Remember, if we don't buy it, they can't sell it. So if we buy organic, buy local as much as possible. I know it's hard to get pineapple in New England, but as much as possible. If we boycott Monsanto's products, in particular Roundup, and if we support groups that want to use public grounds like schools to grow crops, then maybe we will all start heading in the right direction. Perhaps we can find concerned citizens who can help build tower gardens or raised gardens in our schools, or mini greenhouses covered with plastic and homemade solar panels. And these people do exist. Some of them are called preppers, but don't let that discourage you. Many of these people are willing to volunteer their time. But most importantly, think about what you and your kids can do to help support all of these local movements. Anyway, back to the episode. I've been wanting to do an episode on Reiki for a while now, but first I wanted to actually have the experience. But let's start from the beginning and define Reiki. Reiki is often referred to as being in the category of healing touch therapy. Here in the U.S., commonly referred to as the West, for some reason. I don't know, it's east of something. But anyway, here in the West, we have done studies comparing a patient's personal experience with 2 kinds of physician care. So these studies have been conducted comparing a patient's experience following a doctor's visit in 2 scenarios. In one scenario, the doctor shows signs of compassion. In other words, the doctor would put his hand on a patient's shoulder or upper back in a reassuring manner before leaving the room. In the second scenario, the same doctor with another group of patients would show less compassion and no reassuring touch on the shoulder. I imagine you won't be surprised to hear that the patients who got the reassuring touch on the shoulder from the doctor felt better, and they appreciated the doctor's assistance more. The patient's perception in the reassuring touch category was that the medical care was better. And as I said, that would be as expected. But when it comes to Eastern medical practices, the same personal observations may be more controversial. And to be honest, we are talking about personal experiences and not clinical data. A certain degree of controversy surrounds Reiki in particular, and recently its effectiveness has been called into doubt. But right now, Reiki has been rising in popularity. Someone reported a Google search for the term Reiki returns about 27 million hits. So I decided to experience Reiki for myself before I gave my opinion on the subject. First, a little history. The word Reiki means mysterious atmosphere and comes from the Japanese words rei, meaning universal, and ki, meaning energy. The Chinese also have a word to describe the same type of healing energy, and they call it qi. And often ki and qi will be interchanged, because basically they're talking about the same thing. Reiki was initially developed by a Japanese Buddhist called, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Mikao Usui. Here in the United States, it showed up as a healing practice sometime in the 1940s. Reiki is not affiliated with any particular religion. It's not massage, and it's not a belief or suggestion as, say, hypnosis would be. It's a subtle form of energy work, using what they call a spiritually guided life force energy. So Reiki is a healing touch technique based on the principle that a therapist can channel energy into the patient by means of touch. It is believed that a person's ki or energy should be strong and free-flowing. I just read that in an article, and I'm not quite sure until I experience it what that means. But basically, they are saying when energy is free-flowing, a person's mind and body can be in a positive state of health. I guess the presumption also is that the opposite is true. In other words, if someone is what they would call blocked, that can result in negative sources of energy, perhaps negative thoughts circling around in your head over and over. Also, what they say is that if energy is blocked, it can lead to physical symptoms. And unfortunately, this is something that at this point would be pretty hard to prove. But the theory behind that is that negative thoughts and feelings can attach to this energy field within us. I don't imagine that watching the 6 o'clock news every night would make this any better. Perhaps another way to look at this is that if you have low self-esteem and you have the same criticisms of yourself spinning around in your head, you need to consciously do something to make change happen for the better. They go on to say that a Reiki session can help ease tension and stress and can help to support the body, facilitate an environment for healing to happen. A session is pleasant and relaxing and can be seen to be utilized for a person's general wellness. Okay, so how does it heal? Here is a description that I found in one of the articles. I'll give you a link to it in the show notes. The theory is that Reiki heals by flowing through the affected parts of the energy field and charging them with positive energy. It raises the vibratory level of this energy field in and around the physical body where the negative thoughts and feelings are attached. This causes the negative energy to break apart and fall away. In this way, Reiki clears, strengthens, and heals the energy pathways, thus allowing the life force to flow in a healthy and natural way. I was told that sessions can last about 30 minutes. Logistically speaking, Reiki can result in better sleep. It may relieve or reduce pain a small amount, and it might possibly help to stop the progression of certain diseases that are triggered or worsened by stress. Although, again, it is very difficult to prove any of these statements. Reiki uses a technique commonly referred to as palm healing or hands-on healing. What happens in a Reiki session? First of all, because Reiki is not a specific religion, anyone can technically be trained to be a practitioner. Technically, this could be a good thing or a bad thing. Although a more peaceful setting is preferable, technically a Reiki session can be carried out anywhere. Some people like to be treated in silence, while others may choose to listen to relaxing music. Okay, so yesterday I had my first Reiki session. My personal practitioner, in this case, has been doing this for years, so I was pretty confident that I was with an experienced practitioner. The CD she used was mostly flute music, with some harp added as well. I was lying on my back, fully clothed, with my head elevated. First, she gently placed both hands on the top of my head. She held her hands there for about 3 to 4 minutes. I immediately felt a sensation of heat coming from her hands. Then she lightly placed her hand on my chin and held it there. She repeated this process on my upper chest, my belly, on my legs, midway between my knees and thighs, on my ankles, and on my feet. Sometimes I felt an intense warm sensation that slowly dissipated, and sometimes on different parts of my body, not so much. After the session was over, she told me about her experience in terms of what she was feeling when she touched a certain area and what thoughts came to her head. Then she asked if there was anything specific that I could tell her about sensations I had where she was laying her hands on, or my thoughts in general during the Reiki session. She commented specifically that she felt a different sensation when she put each hand on my legs, around the middle of the leg. She didn't know this, but my specific type of muscular dystrophy, for unknown reasons, spares the quadricep muscle. That is the muscle that she was laying each hand on during the session. She also mentioned a few things about specific thoughts that were coming into her head while she was doing the treatment. As for my experience, I remember thinking when she was laying her hands on my ankles that I didn't want the session to end. It was very relaxing. And I also happened to fall asleep sooner that night than usual. Now, there is no way to scientifically record any of that on a data table, and in my opinion, there's really no way to make a scientific correlation between the feelings I experience while getting this treatment versus something else I might go to in the healing therapy category of treatments. So I guess if we are looking for scientific proof that it is beneficial, it just might not be there. In one of these articles, they do mention that solid, well-run studies into the effectiveness of Reiki are limited overall. But to date, none of them have shown that Reiki is more effective than a placebo. But then my question is, what is the placebo? Is it staying at home on the phone with your cable company while they ask you to unplug your modem, wait 10 seconds, and replug your modem? Is it lying by your backyard pool on your chaise lounge while your gardener, Maurice, lays his hands on you? Or is it sitting still with your eyes closed in front of your TV while Dr. Oz is telling you that you will look 20 years younger once you open your eyes? On the other hand, if the placebo they're talking about is another type of relaxation therapy, such as hypnosis or acupuncture, it might be a bit unfair. These techniques might all, to a greater or lesser extent, relax you. So if you're interested in knowing more, my recommendation is to try it and then simply ask yourself, how do you feel? Would you like to repeat the session? If the session is costing money, are the benefits worth the cost? Because bottom line, the scientists have no specific way of knowing that there are any physical or psychological benefits to Reiki. I just know that I would love to have that relaxing feeling again and again. That's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.